ask a few questions before opening up to the audience, but can you start by talking about how you came into the subject matter, you got access to all these great musicians?
As with all of the great things in this world, the whole film kind of happened by accident. It's true. I'd been working in Africa for many, many years for the BBC, traveling to a ton of countries. Always wanted to go to Mali, was never sent to Mali. And I finally decided, that's it, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna be a tourist, I'm gonna pay my own way and I'm gonna go. And I was planning on going to the famed Festival in the Desert, which is a sort of a music festival in the sand dunes outside of Timbuktu. It's an absolute mecca for music lovers. I decided to go, I was planning my trip, and that's when the conflict happened. And instead of cancelling everything, I decided just to carry on and go, and started making a film. There really wasn't any decision that was made, it was just something that happened. And I think as a lot of filmmakers do, and as I do, we're constantly looking for stories that help to shed light on a much wider issue. So we're looking for something which is sort of easily digestible, a route into a much wider story. And when I heard that music had been banned, and I was a long-time fan of music, I knew that this would be a really interesting way to talk about the rise of extremism in Africa, which is a topic, it's sort of insurmountable almost. And I thought that this would be a great way for the audiences to start to learn about it.
Can you talk about more how you met the musicians? Because they're such strong personalities on the screen. And I'm wondering if there were any other musicians that you came in contact with that
absolutely.
Films?
Yeah, we interviewed lots and lots of people. Interestingly, the very first day that I got there, I knew no one. I had the name of a fixer who was going to help me out. He picked me up at the airport. He said, "Oh, I've got a musician that I'd like you to meet. It's a friend of my mom's." I'm like, okay. So it was the first day of the research trip, and he brought me to Hyra Arby's house. And she, for those who don't follow Malian music, Hyra Arby's is immense in Malian music circles. She's the mother of all music in Mali. She's the only singer that speaks all 7 languages of the country. So to actually sort of arrive at her doorstep, I thought, yeah, this is gonna work out. Actually, this is gonna be absolutely fine. And so the fixer found Hyra for us, and I also enlisted the help of a wonderful writer called Andy Morgan, who had been in the Malian music scene for a long time as a manager. He actually was the person who managed Tenariwen. I don't know if some of you have heard of Tenariwen, and managed them for like 10 years. He was at the very first festival in the desert. And he wrote an extraordinary book called Mali Music and Culture and Conflict, which is a terrific book. And he was the one who suggested disco and Musa and song and blues. So he was just a fantastic partner to have. We were very, very lucky that he agreed to work with us, and he ended up being the co-writer of the film. And it was a war zone. I mean, it was people were in refugee camps, people were all over the place, and we just turned up and asked them to talk to us, and it kind of grew from there. And the people who ended up staying in the film are the people who we felt had the right stories to release to the audience. I mean, there were a lot of other musicians who were superb that we interviewed. But their stories were a bit too similar to Musa's, and it was just, it's all a matrix, it's all a puzzle, you have to kind of put it together. But I will say that the DVD extras are going to be immense.
Speaking of the danger, the final concert is such a cathartic moment in the movie. And when I was watching, I was wondering what kind of preparations you took to prepare for it, and it's sort of such a tentative, sort of up in the air thing that it could very well never happen.
Yeah, I didn't know it was going to happen until it literally started. Tanya Bindra is here tonight. She's hiding in the back row, and she was a second unit director and camerawoman. And she and I traveled to Timbuktu with the United Nations. They sort of took us under their wing, and it was touch and go. We just didn't know if it was going to happen. As you saw in the film, Disco had a lot of trepidation. She didn't want it to happen. She thought it was too soon. There were beheadings, like right before she was about to leave, literally the night before. It was an intense situation. But I think Hyra, particularly, was just like, I'm going to will this into existence, and everybody else be damned. Nobody knew. We didn't tell anyone. She didn't tell anyone. She told everyone just the day before, and they started announcing it on the radio. And it was a bit chaotic, and it was more like a street party. People were wandering up, like, on their way home from the shops, kind of going, what is going on here? And what, and for a lot of the children in the audience, and this is something I didn't even realize until we got back, a lot of those kids would have never seen live music before because they were born during the ban. So, I mean, it was really extraordinary.
Did you have multiple endings prepared in case?
Yeah, we had a lot. We had a lot. At one point, we thought actually the Song My Blues tour was going to be the ending of the film, because it was looking like this concert was never going to happen. It was supposed to happen in April, and then it was going to happen in June, and then it was going to happen in September. And in the end time, it was December, wasn't it, that it happened, like right in the middle of December. And we were locking the film, like maybe 4 weeks later. And the last shoot was Tanya on her own in Mali. It was December 24th. And we had to send a cut of the film to the South by Southwest Festival, where we were supposed to be premiering on January 2nd. Oh. It was a race.
Sure, that wasn't nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I can open it up to the audience now if anyone has any questions.
It's hard to see. Just shout, and then I'll repeat it.
Yeah,
I think it's easiest.
Black shirt.
Well, thank you so much for your film. I was curious, what's it like scoring a film about music, and what does the score need to bring to the film?
The score was, it was unbelievable. Actually, what we actually ended up doing was commissioning a lot of Malian artists who didn't appear in the film, not as characters, but other Malian artists to write songs for us. So actually 80%, 85% of the music in the film was commissioned by us. So we had Via Farcatore and Alpha Bukum and Kanku Kuyate. We had all of these people, so we gave them briefs and we said, okay, we need a song for this scene, or we need a song for that scene. And I asked Kanku, we need a song about what it's like to come of age in a conflict zone, for that scene where disco's packing. And so that was really exciting, because not only were we allowing the musicians in Mali to tell their own story, which is of course what the musicians in Mali have always done. They are the griots, they are the ones who communicate messages, but we were also giving them a job, because they couldn't earn a living in Mali, because they couldn't play music, they couldn't perform. And the way that most musicians earn their sort of bread and butter money is by playing weddings, and that whole thing just kind of stopped. So there was the song side of it, which was really amazing to work with these musicians. And then we also had Nick Sinner from the AAS, who you saw in the film, who the first time I met him was on that shoot when he came to produce some of his album. We sort of worked up enough courage a couple months later to ask him to provide the musical score, which was great. So he started that in LA, and then we met him in Paris with Marc Antoine, who you also saw in the film, who became Song My Blues' manager. He ended up being our soundtrack producer. And we just watched the film, and Nick had his guitar, and we were just kind of going for it. And different themes would emerge. We had Disco's theme, Hyra's theme, Musa's theme, and it was like everything in this film. It wasn't hugely planned. It was really extemporaneous. It was really organic. But Nick's music is fantastic, and it's the best addition to the film. And the soundtrack will be coming out later this year on Living Factory Records. And we're just really excited to share this music. We have, I don't know if you noticed, we had 2 tracks in the film that are never before released, never before heard, Ali Farcatore tracks, which is really amazing, that we got from World Circuit Records, which is fantastic. And there's also 2 songs from Song My Blues that don't appear on their album Music in Exile, which I encourage everybody to buy. That will be on our soundtrack as well. So there's a lot of really fantastic hidden gems. And 2 Tenari tracks actually that had never been recorded before, which you would have heard in the film, including the one that Musa performs at the end of the film. The soundtrack is going to be amazing. There was something else here.
In the corner?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an incredible film. Congratulations. I was just wondering, how did you get the footage of right next to the people with guns, like in the middle of the war? So there's that. Also, I was just curious if this was influenced by Amanda, a similar movie about South Africa.
I've never seen that film, no. Is it good?
Yeah.
I will check it out. So the Battle for Gao was shot by a friend of ours called Aris, who does that every day. That's his job, is to go. He's former military. he's trained to go and shoot in situations like that. And I saw some early stuff that he had shot in Mali online when I was first sort of researching this film. Got in contact with him, we became friends. He shot a lot of stuff, he's given it to us. Tanya, who's here tonight, who also shot the film, was at that battle, but it was before we knew her. She was there taking photographs, because she's a photojournalist most of the time. So, I think I'm a firm believer in the right person for the right job. And I think if you're going to go and shoot a battle, you need to be militarily trained. I would never put myself in that sort of situation because that's not my background. So Aris was really exceptional. We also worked a lot with Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera had a wonderful 3-part series called Orphans of the Sahara, which I also highly recommend, which I think you can get on YouTube. And we worked with them, and they found some footage for us that they had shot whilst they were out there at the time. So, those scenes you really had to kind of piece them together. We worked with a lot of great local cameramen in Mali, Chikura and Moise. They would shoot when we couldn't. So, for instance, the UN said, we can't protect you if you drive from Bamako to Timbuktu. You have to come in our plane. So we had to send a local cameraman who was absolutely fine about driving and reiterated what the UN had said to us, which is, you're too bad, you can't go on the road. You'll be dead by the first 10 miles, but I can go, it's not a problem. So Moise, who was this young camera assistant who we were sort of training up, did that whole journey with Hyra. So all that footage of Hyra driving up to Timbuktu was all shot by a young Malian cameraman who did the most phenomenal job, and we're so proud of him. So it's really like a village of camera people and fixers and journalists, and if you're working in a war zone, you have to kind of just all work together. And then we would get it all back into the edit suite in London and just try to piece it. It was a challenge for sure.
I've got 2 questions. One is what is the distribution or release plan for the film? And then the other is, did you choose specifically not to have full complete performances in the film, or it was more set snippets? Is that a rights issue, or is that just
the performances is a time issue. So the film was just very long. And nobody would distribute it for our cut of the film. And one day I will make a director's cut, which will have these long, beautiful performances, or maybe there'll be DVD extras. I'm not really sure. But it was just a timing issue. We had to get it down to something that was manageable, that a cinema could program, because nobody's going to program, a 3-hour movie. In terms of distribution, we actually formalized some plans this morning with our distributor. It's really great, and I'm not allowed to tell you what they are yet. But there will be an announcement, I think, maybe next week or the week after. We are definitely releasing in theaters. It's going to go on general release in this country. We're going to hit as many cities as we possibly can. We have plans to bring Song My Blues over, and we're going to tour with the band and the film and have lots of events and do lots of really cool things. So that's here. We are releasing in the UK in October, so that the UK is a little bit ahead. But we have lots of exciting things planned. We have a fund which we're going to announce in a couple of months that we're starting for musicians in exile, and we're working with a great organization who works with persecuted musicians every single day, and they really have the intel to know what's happening where and who's in trouble. So all of this is sort of to come, and really we've just been going from festival to festival to festival since South by. But can I just say that out of all of the festivals that we've played at, this is the first one where they provided chairs. Normally I'm standing up, kind of like rocking back and forth, being very nervous, but the chairs are fantastic. So
I was just wondering if you got any sense from the artists about how they feel outside of Timbuktu and the South. Unfortunately, as this becomes a more protracted conflict, I know that there was an attack, an explosion or something in a terrace in Bamako this year, and I was wondering how you and they feel that impacts, their livelihood and safety concerns elsewhere in the country, but also people's access to music.
Yeah, the attack in Bamako was very surprising. So basically, the whole time that we were filming, all of the attacks by the extremist groups were in the north. Gal, Kidal, Timbuktu, various places like that. You know, we more or less knew that if we stayed to the south, Ségou, Bamako, you know, over the border in Burkina Faso, that we would, you know, we felt pretty safe. In the past, you know, 4 or 5 months, the attacks have started to spread, and now they're everywhere. So there was an attack in Bamako, the capital, and there have been a couple of attacks down near the border, Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast. So that's the background there. The musicians are, I think they're getting very, very nervous because Bamako was their safe zone and Burkina Faso was their safe zone, and now their safe zone is slowly being eroded. And I don't think that anyone expected this to go on for so long. Even Nat says in the film, we thought this was going to be a couple months. There have been uprisings before between the north and the south, and there's, you know, some battles, and then it kind of gets resolved. This was the first time that extremist groups came in and took advantage of the vulnerability created by the north-south divide. And I think people just thought, oh, it'll be the same as always, but it hasn't been. It's gone on and on and on. And you know, there are some musicians out there who say, you know, it's over. The music scene in Mali, the golden age of music in Mali is finished. There are others who are incredibly positive. We interviewed Bass Koukouyate right at the beginning of this film, and he was like, it's fine, everything's fine. Like, he was so adamant that everything was going to be fine. A little bit like Musa when he goes back to Gao, and his wife is like, yeah, we're under attack every 3 days. He's like, no, it's cool, it's good, we're fine. You know, I think that people, every person has their own way of dealing with it, and every person has their own level of what they're willing to accept. And really the only thing that I think that we can do is buy their albums. And I really encourage you to go out and buy Mali musicians' albums. You know, don't listen to them on the internet, purchase them, because they can't earn a living at home. People are starting to come back from the refugee camps over the borders to a place that isn't really put back together yet. And it's really just this sale of their music, which is going to provide, you know, the tiny livelihood that they're going to be getting over the next couple of years. But, you know, I don't think anyone can guess what's actually going to happen.
Just give me that book you mentioned.
Yes, so the
four
author
words of the title.
The author is Andy Morgan, and it's Music, Culture, and Conflict in Mali.
Culture, Conflict, Mali.
Yeah, and you can get it on. I think it's print on demand. So these days, because I think it went out, it sort of had its first initial print run, but I think you can still order it. It's print on demand, Amazon, you know, etc. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. You'll read it in one sitting. Andy Morgan is such a truly gifted writer.
How many pages is it?
It's like I can't remember the number of pages, but it's like novella length. You know, it's short, and he gives the best description by far of exactly how things broke down. Who is this group? Who is that group? What do they have to do with each other? How did the MNLA get wrapped up in this whole extremism thing? You know, did they just think this is too good to be true, and then these guys, you know, deceived them? And you know, he really, really breaks it down. I think in a way that goes even further than we were able to do in the film, just for time constraints. It's phenomenal. I really recommend it. He's great.
The Sound Point blues musician was saying how Tuareg really aren't talking about what matters, extremism. While the Tuareg, well, disco says that we are always being used, we have been used. Could you say more about those perspectives?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to put words into their mouths, but I can definitely expand on that. I think disco feels like the Tuareg have been used because, I mean, for many, many reasons, but I think in that particular moment, she's specifically referring to the extremist groups, kind of piggybacked the Tuareg rebellion and then started pushing their own cause. And that's really what caused Mali to descend into chaos. So I think she's specifically talking about that. When Ali says that the Tuaregs aren't talking about the important things, you know, I think he's very frustrated with how this whole thing has just gone on and on and on. And you saw the clips from Algeria, from the peace talks, and the Tuareg vice president, or sorry, the MNLA vice president is up there going, well, actually, no, we can't discuss this today because of, this red tape and that piece of paperwork, and, we haven't provided a list of this, that, and the other. And, I think that would make anybody frustrated, because it's really only if the government and the MNLA work together that they have a hope of defeating the extremist groups. As long as they're fighting, these guys over here can retake Mali at any time. So I think that was the frustration that he was experiencing, and I think that's something that a lot of people experience. Isn't Ali an incredible talker? He's a lawyer. Yeah, he passed the bar. He can practice law in Mali. Garba, the guitarist, is a molecular biologist, and Umar has an MA in international relations. Yeah, they're smart kids. Good?
I think we can end on that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And please find us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the rest of it, and like us and follow us, so that then when we are allowed to announce things, that we can announce them then to you there. Thanks.